Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is going to be a video for the Extreme Weather YouTube channel. I am one of the severe weather forecasters here. And my name is Andrew. So basically, getting started here. Currently, we have some severe weather going on across the Midwest and into the Mississippi River Valley and Great Lakes region as this video or as this recording is happening. Lots of heat as well across the central US. Now this is going to be on the topic of severe weather, so if you're a tropical person, we might have another thing like this later today or in the next couple of days concerning your tropical weather. Currently we have a severe weather risk zone from Iowa into Michigan for today, including Illinois and southern Wisconsin along the way. Day 2, we do have a risk for isolated severe weather, but currently there is no severe risk area placed by the our Weather Prediction Center. And then day 3, we have a flash flooding risk zone across the plains. In this event, and there can also be in that area some interesting severe weather that day too. Current current look at here's the 18Z front plots. Here is 0Z here's 0Z what 0Z might look like. So it looks like you'll see some isolated showers and thunderstorms here, and then across this region as well. It's going to be a bit bigger than what they're predicting because of all the uncertainties. And then tomorrow and then tonight we'll have a big area. And then into tomorrow we'll have a boundary that sets up in front of the storms that are in front of the cold front. That'll set up the potential for severe storms. Another area of severe storms as well across the plains actually ending up showing up, which is interesting. Then Tuesday morning we'll probably see some morning convection, and then the afternoon we're gonna have a triple point set up across Nebraska and South Dakota and maybe Minnesota, Iowa, and maybe even a change for severe weather all the way into Michigan along that warm front there. We'll keep an eye on that. Could be a very interesting event to keep track of. Then there's Friday, and then Saturday, and then Sunday, then Monday, and then Tuesday. We could have a tropical cyclone make landfall as well next week. So we'll just have to watch that. Rain totals are going to be very high across the upper Midwest, ranging from 4 to 7 inches in Minnesota and Wisconsin, as well as some high totals from a tropical system down in the Gulf as well. Excessive rain outlook, a marginal today in 2 areas, marginal tomorrow in a couple areas, and then a slight. Here's what the Storm Prediction Center has for us. We have a severe thunderstorm watch currently up across Illinois. Damaging wind gusts and isolated large hail will be possible. Across this watch area, again, damaging wind gusts and isolated large hail will be possible. Oh, oops, I accidentally got into the radar site there. So, as this is being recorded, we have a slight risk from Iowa into Michigan and Indiana. A very large marginal surrounding that. A 2% risk of tornadoes within the slight risk. And then we have a 15 hatched wind. That hatched will be removed with the next update because the storms have weakened. But there were 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts reported. And we have a 5 hail risk. Tomorrow, there is a marginal risk from the Nebraska and Kansas border all the way up into Michigan. This includes my area as well. We have another severe risk over in kind of the northern plains there. Discussion here saying isolated wind gusts and hail all appear possible. Those are really the only threats tomorrow. Maybe you'll get an isolated tornado in like Nebraska or something. We'll see. We'll probably end up seeing another bit little. We'll probably see some more marginal risk enlargements. Here's day 3. Day 3, all hazards appear possible now. The SPC only thinks hail and wind are possible, but that's the point last night where the models weren't really they didn't really uptrend too much, and now they've uptrended a good amount from that point on. There is some issues which we'll go into in a little bit here, but there's a very large marginal from Wisconsin all the way into what is this state? Montana and Wyoming. I do see this marginal getting expanded even more, probably out into areas like this, I would assume. Probably something like that could happen. We'll end up seeing we could end up seeing a slight somewhere as well. And then with the day 4-3 outlook, predictability is too low. There is mentions of severe weather, but there's too much uncertainty to highlight a area. So let's look at the HRRR model, and this is going to be for tomorrow. We're not going to look at it for today. It's messed up today. It might not do well for tomorrow either, but we're just gonna take it in as a solution. So here's tomorrow morning. We could see a cluster of storms tomorrow morning across a couple of them. As we get into the afternoon, we likely will see one of these clusters actually continue into Indiana. We'll actually take a sounding in front of that environment. So that is not a very good environment for anything other than wind gusts and occasional large hail. So this would not be a tornado threat at all. Just be a wind, hail threat there. Seems like the HRRR just wants to evolve an MCS there. Lots of the looks like a lot of the stabilization is occurring across the risk area as well. The HRRR has had a tendency to underdo the instability recently with these summer events. Oh, I know there's gonna be more than what it shows out there. It's got a locally enhanced area of like 5,000 there. It shows a couple clusters of storms evolving in Illinois and Iowa and Wisconsin tomorrow. Has an MCS weakening actually. And these will evolve. We see a couple storms forming there in South Dakota. Nothing really severe though, and maybe an occasional small hailstorm. Seems like just Illinois is just going to be getting a lot of heavy rain with this. Might see a flash flood risk added there. Looks like in Kansas, isolated thunderstorms. Nothing severe. No moisture. Now in the north central plains, where we have that marginal, the HRRR doesn't really want to do much. We have that marginal tomorrow. Let me look at the outlook here. We have that marginal tomorrow in an area that the HRRR only has a little bit of the area getting stuff, and that's like here. It's like this area where the HRRR actually has stuff within the marginal. It's just a small area, which is interesting. But it ends up firing a bunch of elevated convection overnight with a wind and hail risk only. No tornado risk likely tomorrow. If there were to be a tornado, probably be with the secondary marginal right here from Michigan into Iowa, and the chance for a tornado is just extremely low tomorrow, under 2%. Now, moving on, let's look at other models here. Now, these are going to be some outdated models from 12Z. We'll look at the ARW. Let's pan it back to, we'll go about 12Z. So it ends up evolving a couple clusters here. We'll see if any of them really do too much. Let's go into the forecast slider here. Probably be a better idea. We'll just go like right there. Okay. So it ends up evolving a few clusters of storms overnight in Michigan. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's possible we end up seeing something like this happen, but not likely, I don't think. And I don't think only threat with that would really be damaging wind gusts. That's a pretty nasty line it ends up forming. Also see another cluster evolving into Illinois there, and Iowa and Missouri. That's part of the reason why there's a marginal. Now, this model does not want any wind shear. Clearly doesn't. 4 knots is not going to cut it in the deep layer. But looks like there's a bunch of boundary collisions that happen in Indiana overnight. Like, you get 2 clusters, and then boom, they just collide right there. Kind of cool, honestly. I'll take TS sounding like in the middle. Yeah, it's garbage. Let's go look at the NSSL now. Let's go pan it to like 13, because I'm not having it with its current. Okay, so it ends up wanting a few storms overnight tonight. Again, once a cluster in Iowa overnight and a cluster in like Minnesota and Wisconsin, I'm not sure this is gonna happen. Light storms, a bunch of afternoon showers and thunderstorms developing around 19Z. Seems like some of these could be severe and very well could be. Um, this is not really that contaminated. I mean, yeah, there is a little bit of contamination, which would probably be from reading closer to a thunderstorm. It's not really skewed with the thunderstorm. It's probably just developing cumulus clouds, so we are going to use the sounding here. We don't have much wind shear. That's going to be the limiting factor tomorrow. Not very much at all. There is a little bit more once you get up to 8 to 12 kilometers, but it's still not very much at all. Probably 20 to 30 knots, and that's it. But you do have you have a very thick instability profile all the way up and down. Very moist environment with 78-degree dew points and a strong amount of decape. This will give off a marginal environment along with the strongest lapse rates as well. But this will help give off a marginal environment for wind gusts tomorrow. Anywhere from pretty much this general area will have the risk for marginal wind gusts tomorrow. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. We see a few clusters start to evolve out of this risk, and we'll go into Michigan too. Not very good sounding there, but it was skewed by a storm. Let's go right here. Again, that's still skewed by a storm. A lot of different clusters form and collide here. It seems like a more stronger one forms there in Iowa. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. That environment in Iowa is a bit more sheared. It doesn't have as much instability, but it's still got a good amount. There's still a lot of decay. In your photograph, it has a little bit more shear, and I'll zoom in for you. It's not a very good photograph for anything tornadic or anything, but you can clearly see it's got more wind shear. Now, let's go into the overnight. This is only one solution. Got to remember that. We have some stronger storms actually out here, too, which we're going to look at that risk in the north central U.S. I forgot to do that. Let's go look at that risk right now. So the NSSL wants a storm to develop in Nebraska there. Yeah, that's not going to cut it for anything. Let's look at the day 2 outlook again. It actually has stuff forming in the northwest corner of the marginal risk area. And yeah, that would be a nice wind and hail threat right there. Mainly a wind threat. Lots of decape. No, it's got only 1,000 elevated instability, so it's not really going to do too much. And again, there's no tornado threat at all. I mean, that photograph is tornado looking, but it's not got any surface instability, and it's elevated. Again, same thing with this. Wind and hail are the main threats. Mainly damaging winds, though. And let's see what their risk is out here. Oh, it's only only hail. So, interesting at the Storm Prediction Center only wants a hail risk out there. I would imagine they put out a damaging wind risk across that area. But we'll see. Oh wait, that's for tonight. Was that for tonight? Oh no, it wasn't. Nice little cluster there. Let's look at the FV3. Now this model, don't really look at the reflectivity too hard, because this model does go a bit too supercellular sometimes. Let's see here. Okay, so it wants a couple linear clusters and then a stronger one there. Oh wait, that's for the next day. Interesting. What's a couple clusters to turn into a decent threat for the next day? Not very good. Not very good there. Interesting. And here's where the model is going to output some outrageous stuff in a second on reflectivity here. Yep, boom. Absolutely no way this happens. Now, I mean, it's possible that happens, but I don't think we're going to be getting anything like that at all. It's so glitched at the last room that's not even working. Let's look at the NAM 3 kilometer now. We'll look at that model. And then we'll go into the NAM. And we're going to go more synoptically into the NAM as well. NAM, regular NAM. We might hit on the wrap as well, but that might get a little bit too long. So, let's go on to tomorrow. So tomorrow, a couple clusters of storms form in Iowa. Then you got those strong storms in Illinois, of course. Nothing really happening in this area and the marginal for the high plains, but then stuff starts to erupt overnight. And again, Looking at the soundings, it's a wind risk and hail risk only. And then we get into... Okay, that's the 12Z model run. Let's get on to the 18Z. This is not updated information, by the way. So let's get on to the 12Z NAM 3 kilometer. Again, strong storms over the Midwest for tomorrow. Has an environment there right at 12Z and wants to fire stuff. And that would be favorable for wind and hail. We have a lot of elevated instability that is located right here. We also have a very sheared wind profile here with around 55 knots of deep layer shear. We have good lapse rates in the middle and upper levels because the lower levels, you see here the lower levels are, it basically just goes up and you're just going to get elevated storms because you're not going to have anything that's going to be rooted to the surface. It's all going to be 3+ kilometers up. So that's why we call that elevated. Moving on. Seems like some morning convection ends up hitting, and we end up seeing some potentially severe storms at this point across Iowa. And yeah, I would agree. There's definitely could be severe at this point. A very large amount of instability is in place, especially in the middle and upper levels. Let's go zoom in on the skew. Let's go zoom in on the skew T and kind of analyze it. So looking at the skew T here, we have a lot of instability all the way up until almost 15 kilometers there. Surface to 3 instability is not too bad, but it's not too great either. Hodograph, seems like a wind. It seems like an all hazards hodograph to me, mainly wind and hail, but maybe you can't roll out a tornado with something like that. Mainly wind and hail though. Lots of strong lapse rates as well. Forgot to mention that. Let's go zoom back out though. And let's go into a little bit later in the afternoon. Some storms end up popping up along the dry line in western Nebraska. We'll take a sounding here. That's Hail City right there. Look at how much that temperature drops in the lower levels. Look at that. That is Hail City right there. You'd get very large hail if this sounding would come to fruition. Strong deep layer shear as well helping that out. Now looking a little bit later, around 23Z, we have that cluster in Iowa still going, and the hotographs get a lot better, and the lower level instability gets better for tornadic activity, a lot better. Still be a damaging wind and hail threat as well, but we have a lot more shear overall as well at that point. Let's go take a sounding out here in South Dakota and analyze it. Okay. Again, really wind and hail with this one. How about we take a sounding right out here? Analyze this. Okay, there's no moisture right there. Take a sounding right here and analyze it. See here. Okay, this is a tornado threat right here. There's a tornado threat. Now, yes, it does skim the line of being elevated. Right there. Which we'll have to watch what other models do with it. The lower level instability is not good. The lapse rates are good. The instability is good. And your hodograph is good. So, we check about 3 to 4 boxes. Moving on, looks like the NAM 3 kilometer just does its thing and develops a few clusters of damaging wind gusts. Look at 60. It's like a sounding out there in South Dakota. It'll probably be some mental wind sounding. Oh my gosh, that's a really good sounding for wind. I mean, not really good, but a good sounding for wind right there. Now, let's go to the NAM. We're going to be looking at the NAM more synoptically, and then we can go more mesoscale with it. We'll go to tomorrow and look at the 500 millibar wind. So tomorrow, that's a storm enhancing it, but we'll go to 21Z. I don't think we'd have that storm. Is there a storm right there at that point? Yes, there is. That might actually be actual shear, though. But tomorrow we can see here the Great Lakes and into the upper and into the mid-Mississippi River Valley aren't going to have much mid-level shear to work with tomorrow. That's going to be due into that the jet is more up into the northern plains. Honestly, Canada could see a pretty good event tomorrow. We'll go switch over to the low-level jet. Never mind, it's not really that good over Canada. Maybe 0Z, it's a bit better. Nah, not great. But we just have a bit more flow over that area, but the more instability is, of course, over the Midwest. I would not be surprised if we see that marginal get expanded more to Nebraska. We could see an interesting setup there. I'll just take a sounding with the NAM. Yeah, I won't be surprised. I mean, yeah, there is a warm nose with the NAM, and the shear in the low levels is not all too favorable, but we're looking at 3 kilometer there. It's not bad. But the dew points are going to be very warm tomorrow. We're going to have some strong theta E margins as well across the Midwest. That's going to help. You're going to have strong instability at the surface, probably somewhere close to this. And then, of course, your bulk shear is not very good, like we talked about earlier. That's storm enhanced right there. And then looking at day 3, looking at that jet there, this is not bad. Pretty decent. Pretty decent jet coming across the plains here. Let's see if you have that moisture. Bam, we check out that box with the moisture. How about, let's check the box if we have that low-level jet. Okay, check. And then let's check the box to see the instability. Check. And then let's take a box sounding and see if it's very capped. And it's very capped. So maybe in isolated areas it wouldn't be so capped and elevated. Maybe we go back to 21Z, it won't be that bad. Okay. Let's see if we can check that box off there. Okay, yeah, that's not elevated, but that's pushing the line and wouldn't be tornado producing. So, cool. Now, the next day looks pretty interesting as well. Looks like a more stronger jet comes into play the next day. Across, like, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska again. We'll just check a box. We'll just check to see what moisture we have. A lot more moisture is available as well. Seems like we have a set up to where it looks like a triple point looks to be setting up there somewhere in Minnesota or South Dakota. Look at your temperatures there. Yeah, we have a dry line across the plains, clearly. It's still 99 degrees behind that front. Let's see here. Yeah, it is brutal behind that front. In front of the front in Kansas, though, it's even more brutal. You have a lot more moisture there. About 9 more degrees of moisture there. That makes a big difference. But looking overall here, yeah, we have a low into this area right here. This is probably going to be a focal point for severe weather this day. Maybe it tracks northeast. I don't know. Let's take a look at the next frame. Just kind of stays there. So yeah, that's going to be a focal point as well as that warm front too. Now let's look at 0Z here and look at your 500 millbar. Yeah, your 500 millbar jet's really good. Let's look at your low level jet. That is very good too. Now I don't think it's going to be this strong. The NAM usually overdoes the low level jet. Let's look at your surface cape crossovers as well. Okay, so continuing on with the cape plots here, we can see that we have a lot of instability in place across the region. A lot of it is stockpiled along that warm front here. That is very well placed. You can very easily see it. I also see that looks like to be you can't really see another forcing mechanism really. I mean, looking at the dew points though, you can see we have a dry line or cold front type thing kind of out here. Now let's look at the Weather Prediction Center's page again. Let's see what front this actually is. So this would be valid Friday, and it is a dry line. So that is a dry line that we're seeing on here. I think that's the date. Oh no, it's not. Is this Saturday? This is Friday. Okay, Friday 12th. So yeah, that would indeed be a dry line that we are seeing. So again, that is a dry line. Let's take a sounding there in southern Minnesota and see what we end up finding. Alright, so a couple things for tornadic potential that would limit it. We have not very strong surface winds, and there's not too much veering. It doesn't mean you won't get tornadoes. There definitely is tornadic potential with a sounding like this, but it's not that high. Lots of instability. That's a good sign. Lots of decape. Decape right here. Lots of 3 cape as well. And a good amount of lapse rates. So this would be a sign for large hail, wind gusts, and maybe an isolated tornado. Let's go to 21Z. Still have a lot of dew points stockpiled across that area. Let's go take a box sounding across Minnesota there. And there's your tornado producing hodograph. Wow. Now this is a pretty good box sounding. It's a relatively large box sounding. So let's see. Let's zoom in here. Just look at the box sounding for a little bit. So it's right there. So let's analyze this. Let's zoom in a little bit more so we can get into the individual parts of the sounding. Let's go over to the hodograph here. Your hodograph, you got, let's see here, 1 kilometer shear of around 20 knots right there. You have 3 kilometer shear. It's not very high, probably still 20. Okay, it's 30 knots. Your deep layer shear, so your 6 kilometer barb, and then your 0 around a little bit over 40 knots. It seems like for deep layer shear, and then you probably have like cloud effective shear of like what 60 knots. I don't know. It was But that hodograph right there, very favorable hodograph for tornadoes. I mean, it's got the curvature and the low levels there. That's going to help. And then looking at the wind barbs here as well. Let's go and look at these. You have a lot of veering in the low levels right here. A lot of veering. Now, the upper levels aren't so veered. I mean, they are veered some, but they're not veered too much. They're veered enough, though. Look over that, the skew T chart here. Look at all that instability that we have. We have instability from the surface all the way to probably 13, 14 kilometers up. Seems like the most of the instability is probably from 10 kilometers down to like 6 kilometers there. That's your highest instability. There's a lot of instability, very thick cape profile. And yeah, there's 4,000 mixed layer cape with 5,000 surface, 5,000 mixed layer, and then 900 D cape with the 153 cape. Good lapse rates overall. This is a tornado in hail sounding all the way, if this actually happened. We're going to zoom out again. There's a look at that full sounding there. And that's a really nice sounding there. We're going to take a bit bigger of a box sounding and see if it's any worse or any better. This is, I'd say this is even better, to be honest with you. Still have a very large cape profile. You have better wind shear. Overall, you have better wind shear. You have still good lapse rates. And it'd be a little bit more of a damaging wind producer, a little bit more decape. And this is an even bigger box sounding. So that is that's going to be very favorable. We'll likely see a marginal to slight risk with it. I'm just going to take this screenshot for later reference. But yeah. So let's go zoom in and take some individual soundings here. Now we're gonna look at the precip. Just don't really worry about it. It's the NAM. It's not very high resolution. So let's go out like right here. Let's take an individual sounding. Okay, that's a very good sounding for all hazards. Look at that hodo there. Lots of curvature there. What about like here? Be more into Wisconsin, further downstream environment. Okay. Large hodograph. Now the deep layer shear is not the best. Okay. But you do have some stronger shear going up in height there. Seems like the surface, seems like it's very veered. Lots of instability. Really good all-around sounding right there. So let's go zoom closer in here. So it seems like we have a good amount of dew points. Let's go to 0Z. See here. So 0Z we start to see the pressure fall more, and we also see a storm ride the pressure falls, and oh my goodness. The NAM is coming out here with those overpowered profiles in front of this developing line of storms. We're just going to call it a line of storms. The NAM is not good at doing reflectivity. Now, something I am noticing, there is a relatively strong cap in the low levels. Now, since storms have already formed, it won't matter too much. There's a bit of a warm nose, too. That really won't matter much since we already have well-developed storms. It's not the biggest warm nose ever, either. Strong 3 cape. Lots of overall cape, a very large hodograph with good deep layer shear. 40 knots is good for the summertime, and that's really, I mean, it's good for most time of the year, depending upon, if it's in Dixie, it depends. Not that great. D-cape is good. Got a lot of lapse rates. We're really looking at a lot of everything here with this sounding. Just overpowered in general. Let's go further onto the night here. We're going to get more pressure falls to fall out here. And at this point, this is when the lower level jet really starts kicking in here. At this point, storms could be elevated. Very well could be. The lower level lapse rate to really start to decrease. Now, if you do have a surface-based storm at this point, your tornado threat is still pretty high. Lots of mixed layer capes still available. Lots of middle level lapse rates, not really lower level. A very, very large photograph overall. Now, a little bit further out to the west, it seems like we have a supercell that forms along a low pressure here in like North Dakota, South Dakota, and it's very heavily capped, so you really wouldn't get anything other than wind and hail with that, but that is interesting. Let's go to hour 84. We'll just look at hour 84 for the heck of it. We'll just take another sounding here. And yeah, at this point, nothing's really going to still... I mean, there might still be some isolated wind gusts, but the tornado threat is well over at this time, as well as the hail threat. Now, we're going to go look at the wrap here very briefly on College Due page for that event. And, Nebraska here, we'll just go to hour 50. We'll go to hour 50. So we end up seeing some storms forming here in Nebraska. We also have storms in Iowa form. So we'll take some soundings with those. And we also have Illinois put on a show too, or try to. Seems like Illinois is trying to put some convection out there. Okay, so that's the same sounding. I'm not sure where this is. Might be Iowa, might not be. We'll just take a sounding in Iowa again. Now, if this were to happen, okay, this would be favorable for tornadoes, but the storm would have to break that surface cap. There's a strong surface cap here. It would have to break it. One level lapse rates aren't great, but they're not bad. Your 3 cape is not great, but it's not great. You have a very good photograph though. Very good photograph. Okay, so that must have been the Iowa sounding because this is very similar and that was taken in Iowa. Let's go to Nebraska here. Also take a sounding along this little boundary here. Probably end up with the same sounding again because I hate that glitch. Seems like this sounding's a little bit worse than the other one. So you probably got the same sounding. Yep, same sounding. Really only hail and wind producer there with that one. I don't know if that's the boundary one. We'll just take one right here again. Probably was the boundary one, but it might not have been. We'll just take it. See here. Okay, yeah, that was the boundary one. So looking at this is a very good profile for damaging wind gusts and significant damaging wind gusts at that, and some large hail as well. Moving forward here, it seems like let's go move over to Illinois here for a little bit. We'll just take one more sounding in Nebraska, and then we're gonna move over to kind of the Midwest. So Nebraska, and that's all she wrote. That's not very good. Let's go into Illinois here. We have a little bit of a line of storms that ends up forming off the wrap here. Kind of want to see what the wrap wants to do with this thing. Okay, and that is awful. I mean, it would be a wind threat and a not very good one. Marginal wind threat, and that's it. Awful profile there. Maybe it's a little bit better along Lake Michigan with that lake breeze. Let's see here. No, still terrible. Why did I even check? That's gonna do it for this one. Make sure you stay tuned for later updates, and also make sure you stay tuned for more updates with the tropical and severe side of things. This is very long, and I will end it here.